Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We were on page 92, line 2. علم بأحوال الموجودات الخارجية على ما هي عليه في نفس الأمر بقدر الطاقة البشرية. So that was how Shaykh Mudarris rahimahullah began by defining hikmah, right? As the knowledge of the states of external existence in the way that they are على ما هي عليه في نفس الأمر, in themselves, to the extent of human capacity. And we noted last time that this definition has, let's see, 4 elements, right? علم بأحوال الموجودات الخارجية. 2. على ما هي عليه في نفس الأمر. 3. بقدر الطاقة البشرية. 4. Right? Last session we went through the first, and we said that ilm, according to all the theoreticians, right, Mudarris, is of 2 kinds, namely conception and assent. Conception is where you simply understand the meaning of something, of a term, or an expression, or what have you, without anything further. Assent was, in addition to that meaning, you pass a judgment on it, either affirmative, that is the case, or not the case, right? And we said that the ilm that's intended here is both, however, not sort of equally, right? What's mainly intended is ilm in the sense of tasdiq, okay? And then what's non-mainly or secondarily or per accidens, if you like, what's intended is ilm in the sense of tasawwur. Or, and this occurred to me after last session, as I was thinking about some of the material, or one could say, and one could say this legitimately, what's intended here is primarily ilm in the sense of tasdiq, okay? And we thereby also have tasawwur, because as we said, there's no tasdiq without a prior tasawwur, okay? So you could legitimately say this, that hikmah is an ilm in the sense of tasdiq, and tasawwur comes with that anyway, over the states of the external existence and so on, okay? So one could say this, and some do say this, some have said this, okay? Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay. And we also said regarding that second, regarding the second part of the definition, okay, this part right here, the أحوال الموجودات الخارجية, right? Said that the موجودات الخارجية are external existence in the broad sense that encompasses both external existence in the sense of just outside the mind, okay, as opposed to inside the mind, and external existence in the sense that things that don't depend on the activities of the mind, okay? In other words, things that are not fictions. That's the broad sense. So it could be taken in one of these 2 ways, right? And depending on which one you take it, that's going to have some repercussions, as we'll see later by the end of this section, okay? So what does Shaykh Mudarris mean here? Does he mean external in the specific sense, right? So you could say something like, you know, like موجودات خارجية, okay, can be taken broadly, okay, where you just mean, let's say, outside the mind, okay, as opposed to what's inside the mind. Okay? Or it could mean what does not depend on our mental considerations. Okay? موجودات خارجية. Can you guys see the board? Or is it too... It's difficult to read, eh? Well, we'll take a picture and then send it to the group chat. Ajmal here is going to take some pictures. Right? So, but you see the distinction? Right? A second. موجودات خارجية could be understood in both of these ways. Outside the mind as opposed to inside the mind. Okay? On this view, what's inside the mind is excluded from موجودات خارجية. Or it could mean موجودات خارجية in the sense of what does not depend on any of our mental considerations. So that on this view, on the second view, only fictional things are excluded. Okay? Or things like fictional items. So this expression can be taken in both ways. Which one does Shaykh Mudarris intend here? Right? It might be that, there's a ikhtilaf about this. Like some people say that one, and some people say this one. Okay? And by something, as we'll see, Shaykh Mudarris says towards the end of this section, I think his view is this one. What's outside the mind as opposed to in the mind. Okay? And in this, I think he's parting way with those, let's say, Hokama or those other thinkers who say the first one. Right? Okay? Okay, so that's Mawjudat Kharijiyya. What about...
People that you're saying say that Mawjudat Kharijiyya means that just inside the mind.
Yeah. By what he says later, I think he doesn't mean that. He means Mawjudat Kharijiyya in the more specific sense, not in the broader sense. We'll try and see why. Okay.
So actually, if I just may, so when you say outside the mind, as opposed, I think it says opposed to inside the mind.
Yeah.
So you can think about, obviously, like the immediate things are external, like trees, etc., and then you have like the forms that are present in the intellects. Those would be included in that class, right?
The forms that are present in the intellect?
Yes, because those don't depend on, I guess, my mental considerations or yours. They depend in like some objective intellect. Or am I misunderstanding? Because fictional objects, I would say, are dependent on my mental considerations.
Here it's about our mental considerations. It's about our mental considerations, not what is inside the mind of, let's say, a divine intellect or immaterial intellects, if there are such things. Right? It's about human intellects. Right? Outside our mind or inside our mind. Okay?
Yeah.
So, Mawjudat Kharijiyya in the broad sense excludes those fictional things that we make up.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, whatever view we take for now, hikmah is an ilm in the sense of either tasawwur or tasdeeq, or just tasdeeq primarily in the way that I mentioned, of these external existence, but more specifically of their ahwal. Okay? And what work is the ahwal doing here? Well, the ahwal, or ahal, singular, it's a very broad term, okay? And you could say that it encompasses all the, let's say, attributes of a thing, irrespective of what kind of attribute it is. Okay? Yani, irrespective of whether it's, let's say, an essential attribute or a contingent one, an essential and accidental one, a necessary one or a contingent one, an intrinsic one or an extrinsic one, a relational one or non-relational, وهكذا, right? The different types of attributes and the rest, these are clarified in logic. But ahwal is broad enough to encompass all of these, right? So it's a knowledge of these ahwal of these mawjudat kharijiyya, right? And we can even say and translate this term as like maybe the facts about external existence or the states of affairs of the external existence, right? So if something, for example, is, let's say, an accident, okay? Let's say there's a mawjud khariji, it's an accident. That's a fact about it, right? Or its being an accident is a certain state of affairs, okay? Hikmah is a knowledge of that fact about that external existence. Or that state of affairs, namely this thing's being an accident. Or this thing's being, let's say, F for some attribute F, okay? Okay, so that's the second condition, right? And then Shaykh Mudarris says, "Ala ma hiya alayhi fi nafs al-amr." This is the third condition in the definition, or the third part. Okay. Now this includes a very important term, especially in the post-Abyssinian intellectual scene, which is this term, nafsul amr. Okay, nafsul amr. We could just say very briefly what this is. If I could sum it up in one word, I would say the following. What it denotes is this idea of objectivity. Okay? Objectivity. The way the object is, okay, as it is, you could say that too, objectively. Yani, apart from how you happen to think about it. Okay? So hikmah is a knowledge of the states of existing things in the way that they are in themselves, i.e. objectively. Okay? Objectively, to specify it further, in the following sense. The way that they are is not dependent on how you consider them, right? So if we take some object, okay, and let's say some attribute, let's say object A and attribute F, okay? Now, objectively, either F belongs to A or doesn't belong to A, okay? It's belonging to A or it doesn't belong. It's not belonging to A does not depend on you thinking that it belongs to A or you thinking that it doesn't belong to A. That's the objective state of affairs. And hikmah is a knowledge in the sense of tasdeeq primarily, okay, and tasdeeq includes tasawwur, is a knowledge of that objective state of affair, whether it is the case or not the case, okay? Right? Here's an example of a non-objective state of affairs of which there's no hikmah, okay, or the knowledge of which, quote unquote, or the cognition of which is not hikmah. Think of the number 5 that is odd. Sorry, that is even, right? Think of the even 5. If I say, okay, Ajmal, suppose 5 is even, okay? The evenness of 5, okay? In other words, the attribute of being even as it holds of the number 5 is not something fi nafs al-amr. It's not something nafs amri. It depends on your mental activity, right? The 5 that's even is only there as long as you're thinking about it, right? But apart from your thinking activity, there's no 5 that's even. In other words, the even 5 is a kind of fictional object, okay? So the evenness that holds of 5 is not something nafs amri. It's not something objective. It depends on your mental consideration.
You're trying to objectify yourself.
Yeah, it's something dependent on your. Yeah. It's something mind dependent, as they say, right? Yeah. Nafsul amr excludes these kinds of things, yeah. Or it's supposed to emphasize this aspect of things being the way that they are, mind independently. Hikmah is a knowledge of that. Right? And this condition will be important because without it, the cognitive state that we find ourselves in is in fact not hikmah, but as he'll say, it's a kind of ignorance. Okay? Right. And you can extrapolate this more broadly to any sort of false belief that you might hold about reality. Right? A false belief is a belief in which you judge something to be the case. Okay? Right? You say this thing is in a certain hal. Okay? Let's say that it's F. But fi nafs al-amr, it's not F. So your mental state in regard to that thing is not one of hikmah. It's rather something else. It's a kind of jahl. Okay? This is why this nafs al-amr clause is important. Okay? Hikmah is an ilmun bi ahwal al-mawjudat al-kharijiyya ala ma hiya. Hiya yani those ahwal. Okay? The hiya goes back to the ahwal. Alayhi fi nafs al-amr. It's the knowledge of the states of external things as those states are in themselves. Right?
Okay, what about situations like, regarding like the senses? So if I eat something and so those wouldn't actually be like factual statements. I can't say that there's something factually, something objective about the taste of like this pizza, for example. And so you wouldn't say that these are true fact, right? Because I may say like this pizza tastes good, and you say it doesn't, right? But would you say that that's more of like a value statement and not like factual one, right? In the sense that like the beef doesn't have that quality of like being useful, and so it wouldn't be relevant to what you're saying. Because I'm wondering if it is. How do we evaluate like whether that's true or not? Because that seems to be dependent upon our, mental states.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Sensory state.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that they would say that, first of all, they're committed to the view, at least the hukama, they are committed to the view that sensible qualities are actually extramental properties of objects. Okay? Yeah, so they would say something like, there is, in this, to use example, pizza, a certain qualitative property that is the cause of your experiencing a certain flavor.
Sure.
Okay?
But wouldn't that be this? Okay, so I understand that.
Yeah.
That it would be the cause of me experiencing something.
Yeah, so in that sense, the sensible properties are objective.
Okay, but how about the further fact that it tastes good for me? Right, so I enjoy.
Yeah, no, that might be subjective. Okay. Right? That might depend on various factors about your, let's say, about you. Whether, there are bodily factors or psychological factors. Okay? Or psychosomatic factors, we could say. 1 second, someone's trying to enter here. Oh.
It's Arthur.
Okay. Yeah, I'm letting him in now.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's important. That can certain facts about you, whether bodily or psychic, can influence a judgment you make or your perception. That's no doubt about that, right? And those things would then be, in a sense, i'tibari, subjective. Right? Like you might like pizza and I might not.
Yeah.
Right? But regarding the specific perception of a certain flavor, okay, that's objective.
Yeah.
Okay? So they would, for example, reject the famous view held by, the Cartesians and the Democriteans and others that sensible qualities are mind dependent.
Yeah.
Right? They would reject this. However, there's the Lockean view, exactly, or the Galilean view, right? Yeah. But there's a discussion to be had about this. However, they will be committed to the mind independence of sensible qualities, right? So tastes really are out there, colors really are out there, scents really are out there, and so on and so forth, odors and the like.
Yeah, the colors.
Yeah, right. All the objects of the five senses. All right, but yeah, the other thing you mentioned, it's a factor. However, it's distinct from whether or not the quality itself is really out there.
Yeah.
Okay? So, في نفس الأمر pertains to this. Okay? Okay, في نفس الأمر, in the way these states are in themselves, في نفس الأمر. Right? بقدر الطاقة البشرية, to the extent of human capacity. Now, human capacity is, they say, divided into 3 types. Okay, there's like, the highest human capacity, right? Or the lowest human capacity, or the average human capacity, the intermediate human capacity, right? Human capacity, they say, comes in these 3 degrees, right? So when Shaykh Mudarris says hikmah is this sort of knowledge to the extent of human capacity, what kind of capacity does he mean? Right? And he's going to settle on the view that it's the intermediate human capacity, the average human capacity. Okay? And the reason why it's not, say, the lowest human capacity, okay, is because in that case, he says, every person then will be a hakim, which is clearly false. Right? And the reason why he says it can't be the highest human capacity is because he says against that, we have the fact that above everyone that knows is someone who knows more, right? So there's no, you could say, highest human capacity such that it can't go higher, right? And when his reason against that actually is a reference to a Quranic term, right? I think in Surah Yusuf, right? So at-taqa al-bashariyah here is in accordance with the kind of median or average human capacity, not the highest, not the lowest, right? Otherwise, either everyone will be a philosopher, which is not the case, and there would be someone such that nobody knows more than them, which is false. Okay. Okay. يقول الحكمة علم بأحوال الموجودات الخارجية على ما هي يعني تلك الأحوال عليه في نفس الأمر. Okay. بقدر الطاقة البشرية. وموضوعها okay, موضوع of what? الحكمة الأعيان من حيث البحث عن أحوالها الواقعية. And its subject, namely the subject of hikmah, is the entities or concrete items, better, al-a'yan, insofar as their objective states are investigated. Okay? According to the hukama, every ilm has a subject, has principles, okay, and has questions, and has a goal, okay, a final end, a purpose. Okay, Shaykh Mudarris here just mentions the subject and the goal of hikmah very briefly. Okay, we won't get too much into those parts of any given science, but we'll just say here, following the matan, that here he mentions the subject and the goal. What's the subject? He says the subject is concrete items, okay? Concrete items insofar as their objective states are investigated. Okay? And what is its end? Its end is to attain or succeed in acquiring the human perfections, whether they pertain to knowledge or action and character. Okay, that's the end. Right? So, acquiring the kamalat that are knowledge-based and that are action-based or character-based. right? And we'll see this is in accordance with, as I'm about to say, the main division of hikmah, okay, into theoretical and practical, right? وموضوعها الأعيان من حيث البحث عن أحوالها الواقعية وغايتها, and its end or purpose and goal, i.e. of hikmah, الفوز بالكمالات البشرية علما وعملا وأخلاقا. Okay, is to gain the perfection, the human perfections in knowledge and action and character. Does that make sense? Any questions? I'm not sure why he says here amalan wa akhlaqan. Right?
Like ethical character?
Yeah, but presumably akhlaq falls under amal. Right? It might be episegetical, like amalan wa akhlaqan, right? Like akhlaqan just explains amalan. Sometimes you have this, right? It might not be like a distinct category, right? But rather, like I said, episegetical, i.e. explaining amal. What, right? Amalan yani akhlaqan al-bashariyah. Something like that. That I can understand. But I'm not sure what amal means if it's supposed to be something different from akhlaqan. So we'll just take it, I think, in the way that I mentioned. Makes sense that way. Okay. Now he has two footnotes here that I think it's worth reading. Okay. And sort of they go into what I summarized a bit for you. So the first footnote pertains to this, the first clause, علم بأحوال الموجودات. الحكمة علم بأحوال الموجودات. يعني واجبا أو ممكنا أو عرضا. Right? أو جوهرا, you could add. Right? أحوال الموجودات, kind of موجودات, whether they be necessary موجودات, or whether they be contingent, or whether they be accidents or substances. Right? على ما هي عليه هي يعني حال من الأحوال. So the hiya refers to a state from among the states of these external existence. Okay. والموصول عبارة عن الوقوع ولا وقوع. And the ma, okay, the ma here, على ما, is an expression for either being the case or occurrence or non-occurrence. Okay. So whether the state, is the case or the state is not the case vis-a-vis this external existence. Okay? أي حال كون أحوال الموجودات كائنة على نمط من الوقوع أو لا وقوع. Right? That is the state of the existence occurring or being in a manner or in a mode in which it is either the case or not the case. Right? Both the affirmative and the negative. التي هي أي تلك الأحوال عليه, upon which they are in themselves. Okay? أي على ذلك النمط, in that mode or that manner. Right? في نفس الأمر, objectively. والعلم مطلوب بقدر الطاقة البشرية. نعم, okay. And now he's going to explain why he said, the knowledge has to be على ما هي عليه في نفس الأمر. Why is that? وإنما اعتبر العلم بها, okay, يعني بتلك الأحوال, على ذلك الوجه, يعني على ما هي عليه في نفس الأمر. Why? لأن العلم بوقوع ثبوت حال منتفية عنها, يعني عن تلك الموجودات, أو بلا وقوع ثبوت حال ثابتة لها, يعني لتلك الموجودات, ليس بحكمة. Because, so he only considered or knowledge of them in that particular respect, i.e. in the respect of being in the way that they are in themselves, that respect, was only considered يعني in the definition, because knowledge of the occurrence, or of it being the case, of some state that doesn't hold of those external existence, or al-ilm bila wuqu'i thubuti halin thabitatin, or knowledge of the occurrence of the holding of some state, knowledge of the non-occurrence, bila wuqu', of the holding of some state of those external existence, right, is not hikmah, right? In other words, you believe that F holds of X, but in fact it doesn't. Or you believe that F doesn't hold of X, but in fact it doesn't. But in fact it does. That's not hikmah. What is that? Rather, it's jahlun murakkab. Rather, it's compound ignorance. In other words, it's a false belief, right? You believe something to be the case about this thing, but in fact it's not the case. That's why that qaid, that qualification in the definition is important. Otherwise, we're in a mental state that's a state of compound ignorance. It's not even simple ignorance. Jahl murakkab contrasts with what they call jahl basit. Jahl basit is simply the absence of knowledge. Okay? Like, some kid who doesn't know arithmetic, right? He hasn't learned it yet. He just doesn't know it. Jahl murakkab is the presence of a certain mental state, okay, of tasdeeq, but that mental state does not mirror reality. In other words, it doesn't correspond. That's jahl murakkab. So when you believe about X, that it is F, okay, but in reality is not F, you are in a state of jahl murakkab. Okay, so the knowledge should be in that particular respect, i.e. of the states as they hold of these existence in themselves, objectively, to exclude this. Okay? ثم المراد بالطاقة البشرية طاقة البشر المتوسط. And what is meant, and further, what is meant by human capacity is the capacity of the average person. وَإِلَّا, otherwise, i.e. if what is meant is not that, okay, but rather the capacity of the highest human capacity, okay, or the lowest human capacity, okay, then what will follow from that? لَزِمَ أَنْ يَكُونَ كُلَّ إِنسَانٍ حَكِيمًا. Okay, it would follow that every human is a hakim, i.e. if by taqa bashariya we mean the lowest human capacity, okay, then everybody would be a hakim. Or وَإِلَّا لَزِمَ أَنْ لَا يَكُونَ أَحَدٌ حَكِيمًا. Or it will follow that nobody will be a hakim, if what we meant was the highest human capacity. Since فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٌ. Since above every knower is someone that knows more, right? And that's a reference to Quran 12:76, I think. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
طيب. Okay, so having defined now hikmah, oh, that's weird. Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah, I can.
Actually, you know what? Hold on. Oh, but then you're gonna suffer. So this is actually mainly for you. You have it there? You have the text there on the phone? Oh, okay, good. That's perfect. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, then maybe it's better to just... Okay. So, having now defined hikmah, he's gonna tell us about its divisions, the main divisions of hikmah, right? And this is in accordance with proper methodology. Before you divide something, you have to first define it, right? Otherwise, it's not clear, like, what is it that you're talking about? What are you dividing? Okay, so given that that's what hikmah is, he then divides hikmah into two main types, and then those two main types with further sub-types, okay? What's the division? The division... Ajma, you can... Is it what this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. To get an eraser too. So hikmah, right, is going to make a primary division, right? You're going to say hikmah is either nadariya or amaliya.
So he puts the Amaliya first.
Yeah, he'll put the amaliya first, but we'll see why he does that. Hikmah is either nadariya, which is theoretical, okay, we'll see what that means, or practical, okay? The theoretical, as we'll see, pertains to just knowledge of things, okay? And it is based on, the division is based on this idea that the things of which we just have knowledge, okay, these are, this kind of knowledge, nadari, okay, these are things which don't depend for their existence on our actions, okay? So, he's going to say hikmah. If it is of things, the existence of which do not depend on our actions, then it's hikmah nadariya, okay? Hikmah, if it is of things, the existence of which depends on our actions, then it is amaliya. Okay? In other words, we do some actions, and certain things come about. Without our actions, those things wouldn't be there. Okay? Amali pertains to those. With this, these things, whether we do the actions or not, they're there. Okay? And hikmah, the kind of knowledge that hikmah is of them, is called hikmah nadari. Right? So theoretical is how it's usually translated. Theoretical and practical wisdom or philosophy. Okay? Then he's going to divide these two main branches into further types. Okay? 3 main types on each side. Okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, even though you can't see this clearly, at least you can hear well. Okay.
Just a heads up, this meeting's going to close in 5 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'll send you guys another link quickly. Okay? Okay. So that's the main division, right? They come in further subtypes. The first one he's going to say is for the Nadari branch. It's going to be metaphysics. Okay?
Sorry, I think you cut off there. Are you saying what are the subtypes of the theoretical?
Yes, that's right. Subtypes of the theoretical. The first subtype is metaphysics. Okay? The second is natural philosophy. Okay? And then the third one is mathematics. Okay? So hikmah nadariya, theoretical philosophy, is either metaphysics, natural philosophy, or mathematics. These are the fundamental divisions of hikmah nadariya. There are subdivisions within each, but we won't get into that. At least not too much. I'll mention them later in accordance with what Sheikh Mudarris says, but not too much. These are the main sub-branches of hikmah nadariya. These are the usul of hikmah nadariya, the fundamentals. Okay? Hikmah amaliya is also divided into 3 main types, okay, which are the usul of this branch of hikmah philosophy. The first is ethics. The second is household management. So it's usually translated. Okay? And the last is politics. Right? Again, they have some subdivisions which don't concern us about ethics, household management, or politics. right?
If I
Metaphysics.
remember correctly, I think McGinnis has something like social affairs sociology for the household.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another way to put it.
Yeah. That's another translation you could use. I mean, I didn't want to say economics, which is the Greek word that this comes from, which literally means household management, right? But when people hear economics these days, it's like misleading. It's not economics in our sense,
Yeah.
but economics in the literal sense, economia, right? Which had to do with managing like your household, immediate or extended, right? Yeah, and it's a larger group. It's a larger. It's something larger than just ethics, as we'll see, but smaller than politics. Okay. Okay, so those are the fundamentals of each side. Okay. Metaphysics is known as ilm ilahi. Okay. Divine knowledge. Natural philosophy is tabi'iyat. Okay, so metaphysics is ilahiyat. Sorry for my bad writing. Natural philosophy is tabi'iyat.
Actually, I thought ilahiyat was metaphysics بمعنى الأخص, and not metaphysics proper.
No. Ilahiyat is the term generally used. Okay? And it closed down on us.
Assalamu alaikum, akhi.
Alaikum salam. It just closed right when.
The Jews didn't want me to get that answer.
Exactly. Let me see. Okay, can you guys see?
Yeah.
Good.
I think you're still brother Asif.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so perhaps I misunderstood. You wanted to say that metaphysics is ilahiyat and theology is ilahiyat ma'al al-khas.
Yeah, that's going to be the term that they're going to use later on. Ilahiyat biman al-akhas and biman al-am. But the general term is ilahiyat. Okay? So, it just means literally divine things. Okay? Divine things. Just like how tabi'iyat, which is natural philosophy, the second branch, means natural things. Okay? Ilahiyat, metaphysics. Tabi'iyat, natural philosophy. And then finally, mathematics is riyadiyat. Okay? Riyadiyat. Okay?
Yeah.
On this side, hikmah amaliya, we have, as I said, ethics, household management, and politics. Or what did McGinnis say? Sociology? Social affairs or something like that?
Yeah, so social affairs, that's one way I believe McGinnis puts it. I'll double check afterwards, but I believe he puts it in that way.
Oh, the brother just sent an invite. I missed it. Oh, here we go.
I think
There.
Armor.
There. I let him in. Okay, he's in. Yeah, so ilahiyat, metaphysics, tabi'iyat, natural philosophy, riyadiyat, mathematics. Hikmah amaliya, practical philosophy or practical wisdom. Ethics is what's called akhlaq or tahdhib al-akhlaq. Okay? Refinement of character. Ethics. Okay? Akhlaq or tahdhib al-akhlaq. You find both these names. Household management is tadbir al-manzil. Okay? Tadbir al-manzil. Okay? Taking care of the manzil. Okay? The second branch. And then finally, politics is siyasa. Siyasa. Okay? So, akhlaq, tadbir al-manzil, wa siyasa. The fundamentals of hikmah amaliya, the usul. There's some furu, as I said, don't need to worry about them for now. Fundamentals of hikmah nadariya, ilahiyat, tabi'iyat, riyadiyat. Okay. As I said, the basis of the division here, okay, into practical and theoretical, right, hikmah, was that theoretical hikmah has to do with, it's a knowledge of things, the existence of which do not depend on our actions. Unlike practical wisdom, practical philosophy, knowledge of things, the existence of which depends on our actions. Okay, what about the basis of the subdivisions? How do these get separated off? How do these get separated off? Okay, let's begin with practical wisdom, right? How do we get these three branches? Well, practical wisdom in general is, concerned with things, the existence of which do depend on our actions, as I said. Now, these things are goods, masalih, singular maslaha. These things, which practical wisdom has to do with, are certain masalih, certain goods, benefits, however you want to translate that. Okay. If these masalih pertain, let me backtrack. These masalih, they either pertain to a single individual or not. Okay? They either pertain to a single individual or not. If they pertain to a single individual, then we have ilm al-akhlaq. Okay? Akhlaq, in other words, pertains to goods, is about goods that pertain to just one individual, the individual on his own. Me personally. You as an individual. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? But if these goods don't pertain to a single individual, okay, but they pertain to individuals, okay, to many individuals, okay, these many individuals either share in being of a single, let's say, household, a single, let's say, social community, right, a tribe, whatever it might be, or these individuals all share in belonging to, let's say, the same city or nation, or some other larger social group. Okay? If these individuals, these goods that pertain to these individuals that have, let's say, social unit in common that we call a family, or a clan, or a tribe, or whatever, that is household management. Okay? And if these goods, which practical wisdom have to do with, pertain to a bunch of individuals that all have in common that they, for example, belong to the same city, or the same nation, or the same, kingdom, empire, whatever, this larger social group, that pertains to politics. Okay? So, we got practical wisdom pertains to certain masalih. These masalih either belong to the individual on his own, in which case we have ethics, or not. They belong to individuals. These individuals either share in being part of a family group or a clan or something, in which case we have household management, or these individuals belong to a larger social group, like a city, a nation, or some other political establishment. And that pertains to siyasa. Okay? So that's the basis of the division of these three branches, fundamental branches of hikmah amaliyah. Does that make sense? Right? So, individual or groups. The goods pertain to the individual as an individual, or to a group of individuals. If a group, either a certain kind of group, in which we have tadbir al-manzil, right, where this group is like the family unit, or the group is a larger group, right, belongs to like a larger social order, in which case we have siyasa. Siyasa is about those goods that pertain to the individual in that kind of setting. Household management is about those goods that pertain to these individuals in this kind of setting. And then ethics is about goods that pertain to the individual as an individual. Okay? Mafhum? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's get back to the text on this, because that's important. Okay, we were on page 92, line 6. Okay? Sorry, can you guys see the screen? Line 6 right here. يقول وتنقسم يعني الحكمة, okay, is divided into عملية ونظرية. Is divided into practical and theoretical. Why? Why is this division made? لأن تلك الموجودات, okay, يعني الخارجية, right, that we mentioned the definition of حكمة, if they are أعمالا في وجودها مدخل لاختيارنا فالعلم بها حكمة عملية. If those existence, okay, are actions in whose existence our choices play some role, then the knowledge of them, i.e. of those existence, biha, the ha goes back to the existence, then the knowledge of them is hikmah amaliya, is practical philosophy, right? Wa illa, otherwise, i.e. this otherwise can be taken in two senses. It can either mean if our choices, yani, play no part in their existence, or it can mean if they are actions in whose existence our choices don't play a role. Okay, this illa can be taken in both senses. Okay, so if then they are not actions, these existence are such that if they are such that our choices don't play a role in their being, okay, or if they are actions in whose existence our choices don't play any role, then knowledge of those kinds of mawjudat is hikmah nadariya. Okay? Now he has a note on hikmah nadariya here. Well, he had actually a note on hikmah amaliya too. He said, فَالْحِكْمَ بِهَا حِكْمَةٌ عَمَلِيَّةٌ. Okay? Why is it hikmah amaliya? Why is it amal? Why amaliya? He says because the primary objective in hikmah amaliya, as I mentioned earlier, is action. It's to do, i.e. that which is the good. That's what hikmah amaliya is about. The knowledge aspect in hikmah amaliya is secondary. Okay? So it's knowledge, in other words, for the sake of action in hikmah amaliya. I want to know about, for example, akhlaq. I want to know the various, let's say, good qualities, bad qualities, in order that I might do good and avoid doing bad. Okay? This is why it's hikmah amaliya. Even though it also includes ilm, nazar. Right? You're not just acting blindly. You know what you're doing. You have knowledge, right? It's hikmah. It's a kind of ilm, right? It's an ilm, and yet there's this amal aspect. Why? It's because the ilm is for the sake of the amal. This is why he says, لِأَنَّ الْمَقْصُودَ مِنْهَا الْعَمَلِ. It's called amaliya because what is sought, the purpose in it is amal, i.e. primarily. And nazar, okay, theorizing or thinking theoretically is only a wasilatun ilayh, yani ila al-amal. Okay? Ilayh, yani ila al-amal. And theorizing is only a wasila, is a kind of, what's that? Sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, you could say a vehicle or like an instrument or something like that. A way to, or a means rather. Is only a means to amal. Nadar, theorizing, is only a means to action in hikmah nadariya. Not for its own sake. Just as he'll say, in hikmah nadariya, what's sought primarily is nazar and ma'rifah, not action. There is no action actually in hikmah nadariya. It's just knowledge for its own sake. Hikmah nadariya is about knowledge for its own sake. Hikmah amaliya is about knowledge for the sake of action. كما أن المقصود الأصلي من الثانية يعني حكمة نظرية النظر والمعرفة is the reflection or the contemplation and knowledge. That's what is primarily sought from hikmah nadariya. Okay? Make sense?
Yep.
He said وإلا فحكمة نظرية. Okay. In the footnote he says بأن كان الموجود where is it؟ بأن كان الموجود المبحوث عنه واجبا أو جوهرا كالمعادن أو نباتات والحيوانات. So as I said, this illa can be taken in one of two ways, either i.e. this otherwise. Either it could mean otherwise, i.e. if they are existence in whose being our choices don't play any role, or it could mean otherwise, i.e. if they are actions in whose existence our choices don't play any role. The illa could mean both. And here in the footnote, he expands upon each reading. Okay, first he's gonna clarify and expand upon that first sense in which the illa can be taken, i.e. illa otherwise, i.e. if they are existence in whose being our choices don't play a role. Okay? In which case, al-mawjud al-mabhuthu anhu, okay, will be wajiban aw jawharan. Okay? It will be the existent that will be investigated in hikmah nadariya will be, like a necessary entity or a substance, like the minerals and plants and animals, right? These are all entities whose existence doesn't depend on our choices, right? Whether we act or not, there are animals and minerals and plants out there with their own features, states, right? And hikmah nadariya is going to be knowledge of those things. Or, on the second reading, if, in other words, otherwise, if they are a'mal, in whose existence our choices don't play a role, okay? He says, they would be like أعمالا لم يكن في وجودها مدخل لاختيارنا وقدرتنا كالحركة الفلكية فالعلم بها حكمة نظرية. So he says, or they, if you read it the other way, in other words, as actions in whose existence our choices don't play a role, okay, they would be like the motions of the heavenly spheres, okay, which in traditional or ancient astronomy are due to the actions of the soul. The reason why the planets move in their orbits is actually due to the volitional activity of certain souls. That's what explains planetary circular motion, right? No, celestial souls, angelic souls in their language of religion. Okay? So according to the ancient, so that would be classified in nadariya, even though they are a'mal, even though they're actions. It's just that they are actions in whose being our actions play no role. Right?
So when he's, okay, I see. So the hikmah, the practical hikmah is more about the human actions.
Yes, of course. About human actions. Right? اختيارنا.
Yeah, not actions per se.
No, not actions per se. اختيارنا وقدرتنا. Right? There is no مدخل, okay, لاختيارنا في وجودها. Right? And celestial motions, even though they're due to the ikhtiyar or the iradat of celestial souls, they still, knowledge of that still falls under hikmah nadariya, because they're not due to our actions. Right? This is why that illa can be taken in two ways. Right? Either just referring to any entities whose existence is not due to us, or actions also whose existence is not due to us. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
You're with us? طيب. Okay. وَلِكُلِّ مِنْهَا أَقْسَامٌ. And each one of them, each one of the two, i.e. hikmah nadariya and amaliya, has divisions. And now he's going to get into this threefold division for each side that I talked about earlier. First, he's going to take up hikmah amaliya. Okay? فإن الأولى إما علم بمصالح شخص بعينه أو, okay, skip over that bit, أشخاص. So the first, i.e. hikmah amaliya, is either a knowledge, an ilm, okay, of the مصالح شخص بعينه أو أشخاص مشاركين أو أشخاص مشاركين. Okay, so the first, i.e. hikmah amaliya, is either a knowledge, okay, remember what knowledge is, of the goods of an individual, a single individual, or of individuals that form some kind of a community, that share, that are together, okay? Right? Musharikina rules out isolated, right? It's not, the division is not, between the goods, the knowledge that pertains to the goods of an individual and individuals, full stop. It's individuals that are musharikina in something, right? Otherwise, if it was just individuals, full stop, then they will be taken in an isolated way, in which case we'll be talking about shakhsin bi'aini again. Okay? So, the first...
Oh, I think, by the way, I think was left behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to stop, we can, but if you wanted to continue, I'm fine.
Well, we can, let me just make this last point and then we'll stop here.
Yeah.
I think that would be better, so that others don't miss out too much. Right? So, it's a knowledge of, hikmah amaliya is a knowledge of the goods that pertain to either a single individual or many individuals that share in something. Okay? If it's a single individual, he says, then فَعِلْمُ تَهْذِيبِ الْأَخْلَاقِ, then it is the knowledge of the refinement of character. Okay? Or, i.e. if it's a knowledge of the goods that pertain to many individuals that share in something, either that sharing is in manzil, i.e. in the household, or just a larger social group like a clan or a tribe or something, fil manzil, then ilmu tadbir al-manzil, then it's the knowledge of household management, right? But if they are musharikina fil madina, but if they share in belonging to the same city or larger community, nation, for example, then ilmu siyasatul mudun, then it's the knowledge of the governance of cities or politics. Right? And you could put a full stop there. So those are then the three main divisions of hikmah amaliya, based on what the knowledge of the goods pertain to, whether the individual or individuals sharing in something. If it's the individual alone, then it's ethics. If it's the individual sharing in a household, then it's household management. If it's the individual sharing in the city, the nation, or what have you, then it's siyasatul mudun. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.